Discover the incredible moment they reveal the hidden truth. A transformative rancher's journey. Jake Matthews stood at the edge of the sprawling Texas plains, the golden sun sizzling down, mirroring the conflict simmering inside him. The ranch, rich with his family's legacy, loomed behind him, a weight tethering him to tradition. For years, he had been the embodiment of rugged masculinity, strong, unwavering, dedicated. But beneath the calloused hands and broad shoulders lay a stirring desire, an undiscovered passion for art that had been shadowed by expectations. What would happen if he veered from the path set before him? Would he be betraying his father? And with that, the very foundation of the Matthews name. Each day felt like a wrestling match between loyalty and longing. He'd catch fleeting glimpses of colors, forms, and landscapes in his mind, aching to unleash them onto canvas. But fear gripped him, fear of ridicule from the ranching community that valued sweat and toil above all else, where emotions were often buried behind hard facades. With his father's injury, the ranch depended on him more than ever. And yet, as he tended to the land, the journal found in the dimmest corner of his father's study haunted him. What if his father had wanted to explore something beyond cattle and crops? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Jake flipped through the pages of the dusty journal, a swell of emotions washed over him: pride, confusion, and an eerie sadness. Beneath the sketches of landscapes lay a delicate vulnerability. His father had seen life through an artist's eye, yet had cloaked it under layers of muscle and grit, sacrificing dreams to uphold the ranching legacy. The journal illuminated how his father had longed for a world that embraced creativity, a voice silenced by the burden of unyielding expectations. How could Jake carry forward this hidden legacy without shattering the image of masculinity that so many relied on? The thought twisted his insides and set his heart racing. Determination clashed with despair. Envisioning the art competition ignited a flicker of hope, yet terrified him. Would painting bring him closer to his father or build an insurmountable chasm? The townsfolk, staunch defenders of rugged tradition, would crucify him for choosing paint over plow. What if they turned their backs on him? This fear transformed his mind into a tumultuous cyclone. What if he lost not only the ranch but also his father's memory? Jake felt the heat rising like a suffocating blanket, his breath shallow and shaky. Doubts wrapped around him like the relentless Texas winds, whispering that he was not worthy of this legacy, not worthy of living beyond hard labor. He wanted to scream to break free of chains forged long ago, but would the echoes of that scream be drowned by the roar of judgment? As he stood on the precipice of choice, bearing the weight of his father's unfulfilled dreams and his own aspirations, the looming day of the competition felt like a double-edged sword. It promised liberation yet threatened to slice through everything he had ever known. Would he rise to honor his father's secret, or would the fear of judgment choke his voice before it could ever be heard? The answer danced just out of reach, a haunting specter lingering in the shadows. With fingers trembling from the intensity of his swirling thoughts, Jake set the journal down, the leather cover cold against the heat emanating from the Texas soil. The horizon stretched before him, vast and unforgiving, a mirror to his own inner landscape of doubt and desire. He felt something stirring within, a flicker of resolve igniting against the oppressive weight of tradition. What if he could embrace both legacies, the ranch and the artist? That night, while the stars twinkled coldly above the ranch, Jake lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his small room, his mind racing. He envisioned the exquisite landscapes that beckoned from the canvas, swirling colors that danced with each brushstroke. Each image tasted faintly of freedom, yet the taste was bittersweet, like the dust clinging to the air after a long day's work. Would he really step into the unknown? The thought sent a shiver down his spine that he spent the following days wrestling with his fear. Every morning, he awakened to the ranch's routine, the hearty smells of breakfast cooking, the distant cattle calls, and the feel of the land under his boots. But now, There was also the voice of his father whispering through the pages of the journal, urging him to reconcile with the unfulfilled dreams etched there. One morning, under the soft golden hues of dawn, an idea began to crystallize in his mind, a refuge where art met agriculture. Determined, Jake ventured into the barn, the familiar scent of hay and leather mingling with the new scent of oil paints he had begun to gather. He unearthed an old canvas from the back of a storage space, covered with dust but intact. For hours, he labored in silence, piecing together an image guided by instinct rather than thought, like his father had once done. Each stroke unveiled a world concealed within him, a breathtaking burst of color emerging beneath his fingertips. As the colors mended into what he dared to call a landscape, a sensation of connection sparked inside him, a revitalizing tether binding him to the dreams he had inherited. No longer was he merely a rancher burdened by expectations, he was an artist discovering his voice through the rhythm of the brush. The ranch was still there, grounding him while simultaneously allowing him to ascend into the unknown. It was, after all, home, but the bliss of creation was shortly shadowed by a creeping reality. The townsfolk would see. Word would spread. The judgmental gazes, those skeptical tones, they would cut deep if he revealed this newfound passion. His mind ricocheted between excitement and fear, creating an internal battleground. Would the community respect the synthesis of ranch and art or deem it a weakness? With the competition still looming, Jake felt the pressure intensify. Could he summon the courage to unveil this part of himself to the world, or would the grip of tradition render him mute? Longing to be accepted as a whole person conflicted with a primal fear of rejection. Finally, that weekend brought with it a pivotal choice. Jake stood at the crossroads of his existence, ready to declare himself to both the ranch and the realm of creativity. Would he face the scrutinizing eyes of his community with the painting? This moment was the threshold, the moment that would either cement his father's legacy or fracture it, leaving him forever in limbo. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting shadows that seethed with questions, Jake confronted his own reflection in the glass of the barn. The moment had arrived, a decision that could change his life. Would he step forward into the light, risking all he had ever known, or retreat into the safety of silence? The ink in his fingers trembled at the thought. What lay ahead was an uncertain future begging to be painted. What would he choose? The sun broke over the horizon, spilling golden light into Jake's barn as he stared at the half-finished canvas before him. Each brushstroke pulsed with a newfound urgency, mirroring the quickened beat of his heart. This was not just a painting, it was a declaration of his intent, a silent shout into the expanse of possibilities that lay ahead. But self-doubt whispered cruelly in the back of his mind. What if this act of creation was nothing but a foolish rebellion against the traditions he had been raised on? As he worked, the ranch outside continued its daily rhythm, the sounds of hooves and distant calls breaking the tranquil morning. It felt like a tether to his identity, each familiar noise pulling him back to the responsibilities that defined him. Every swish of a horse's tail, every echo of laughter from his brothers playing nearby, reminded him of all that was at stake. He was still a rancher, the weight of generational legacy clinging to his shoulders like the heat of the midday sun. Art was mere folly compared to the family's sweat and toil. He dropped his brush, frustration boiling over. The vibrant colors that had carved such hope into his chest now felt like shackles, binding him to a path he had not fully chosen. Was he betraying his family by attempting to diverge? The fear of ridicule gnawed at him. What would they think? Would his father approve of this artistic endeavor instead of another layer of plowed fields or mended fences? His father had instilled in him the values of hard work and tradition. What if he was perceived as greedy for wanting more? The day passed slowly, marked by fading sunlight and the lingering scent of paint and earth. Later, back inside his room, the journal lay open beside him, the words of his father spinning through his thoughts. Their essay spark in creation, it's the essence of life itself. Each quote echoed in the hall of his conscience, battling the internal chaos that threatened to drown him. Yet, from the depths of his turmoil, an idea emerged. Why not blend both worlds? He envisioned hosting a showcase on the ranch, inviting the townsfolk to witness not just the landscapes he could paint, but the way ranch life clashed beautifully with artistry. It would be a bold move, a precarious balancing act between acceptance and rejection, with the night stretching on, he made a plan. The showcase would intertwine the festivity of rural life with the tense sultry evenings of art display. Families would come to see the cattle, enjoy the open spaces of the land, and perhaps take a moment to appreciate his revelations on canvas. Instead of shying away from opinions, he would face them head-on and allow his art to speak for him. But what if the critics were harsh? What if their scoffing laughter echoed louder than the praise? Those thoughts spiraled around his head, darkening the excitement. He couldn't ignore the risk he was taking. The tension between his dreams and reality knotted in his gut, but uncertainty was part of the journey. If the showcase failed miserably, it would still articulate a truth he had long skirted around, the truth of who he was and who he wanted to be. Determined, he pushed the fear aside and picked up the brush once more. With each brushstroke, he whispered reassurance to himself, nourishing the seeds of creativity sprouted from uncertainty. It was time to step forth. As he contemplated the showcase and the eyes that would scrutinize his every move, he realized one fundamental truth. The act of creation did not have to be solitary. He would create a dialogue between two worlds often viewed as separate. By the time the last light faded outside, Jake's resolve crystallized. The moment had come. He would reveal not only his art but himself. Would this act risk everything he knew, or would it cradle him in acceptance? Tomorrow held potential that thrilled and terrified him alike. Would he truly have the courage to transform the perception of what it meant to be a rancher? As he painted, his heart thudded with anticipation, unanswered questions swirling like the colors on his canvas. The stakes were high, and as the night wore on, one thought surfaced in quiet clarity: a choice lay ahead that would demand every ounce of his newfound courage. What other truths would emerge when he finally unveiled his creations? Morning light poured through the barn's open doors, illuminating the chaotic splashes of paint on Jake's canvas. Today felt different. The air held a charged promise, a sense of inevitable change. Yet, despite the thrill lurking beneath the surface, an unease twisted in his gut. Today, he would not only paint, he would challenge the very fabric of who he was expected to be. He recalled visions of the showcase, the flicker of excitement overshadowed by anxiety. Jake carefully set down his brush and took a step back, staring at his work. The image began to transform, a landscape birthed from his dreams and the life he led. With each color, he was no longer confined to a rancher's existence. He was an artist, wild, unbounded, revealing a depth he had kept hidden. Feeling empowered, he picked up his phone, fingers trembling over the screen. Would he call a few neighbors, perhaps a couple of artistic friends from town? A chill coursed through him at the sheer thought of reaching out. Words escaped him, but he willed himself forward. This became not merely an exhibition, it was a test of his identity. With steely resolve, he dialed the number of a local artist, a woman renowned for her vibrant landscapes and her unyielding spirit. She answered, and in a spontaneous rush of determination, Jake explained his vision, his insecurities tumbling out like the paint on his palette. The silence on the other end flickered, then burst into a hammering laugh. "Are you worried they'll laugh?" she said, her tone both gentle and commanding. "People fear what they don't understand. Get them to come and see for themselves." Her words struck deep, embedding a truth he had fiercely avoided. He wasn't merely fighting against societal expectations, he was combating his fear of vulnerability. Each criticism that could arise was an echo of his own self-doubt. What if he laid out his spirit for all to see, only for it to be shunned? A necessary risk. He decided the path to growth demanded such bold exposure that he took a deep breath and rallied his thoughts. What if he curated the space with both the ranch's and his art's heart entwined? A pasture dotted with easels and laughter, neighbors sharing in the raw truth of who he was. Instead of hiding behind rows of mended fences and plowed fields, he would pave a path of creativity. As the sun climbed higher, Jake set to work not just on the canvas, but on the manifestation of his showcase. He forged a plan. He would transform the barn into an open gallery, each corner filled with memories of the ranch, infused with artistry. Conversations, laughter, the warm smiles from those who understood the grit behind the paint. He would cultivate a space welcoming others to witness his metamorphosis, but what if they shared words of disdain? The vulnerability clawed at his resolve. Would his brothers scoff behind closed fists? Would his father turn his back on him, seeing only rebellion in a son who sought the creative path? Questions orbited his mind like a swarm of relentless bees. Yet there lingered an unmistakable flicker of hope. What if acceptance came instead? With shaky determination, he picked up his brush again, fueled by new purpose. Each stroke whispered a mantra. Creation held profound significance. It was not a dismissal of his heritage, but a celebration of it, echoing both the legacy of ranch life and the fire that simmered within him. The sky outside deepened into a striking blue. He allowed temptation to break through. What might success look like? Art opening doors to connection, acceptance, and understanding. It was an exhilarating thought, one that beckoned him beyond the cramped walls of doubt. As the daylight faded, filled with potential and pressing fear, he planned the unveiling of his heart on canvas. He grasped the idea of where he could lead this journey, intertwining both ranch life and artistry so intricately that neither would be diminished but enriched instead. Tomorrow promised the world would see all parts of him: the artist, the rancher, the visionary. Would this leap of faith resonate with those he cherished, or would walls rise higher than ever? Jake's heart raced. The moment of unveiling danced just out of reach, and with it lingered the question of whether the world was ready to embrace the truth he was so desperate to share. As dawn broke, the golden rays spilled into the barn, wrapping Jake in a cocoon of warmth and anticipation. He stepped through the weathered doors, heart pounding like the rhythm of hooves against the ground, the air thick with the scent of wet paint and hay. Today was the culmination of his turmoil, a day when he would dismantle the walls he had so carefully built around himself. Every corner of the barn, once merely a place to store tools and equipment, was now transformed into a canvas of his identity. He had spent countless hours crafting not just his paintings, but the atmosphere. Soft light hung overhead, the warm glow set off by painted easels that cradled the narratives of his past and present. Each brush stroke pulsated with life, a reflection of joy, pain, failure, and triumph. This was not simply a showcase, it was the unveiling of Jake. Yet, as the minutes ticked toward the gathering, doubt clawed at his mind. What if the joy he meticulously painted into the canvases fell flat in the eyes of his audience? Would they see him for the charlatan he feared himself to be? Resolutely, he forced a breath in, pushing aside the panic. The countless nights spent alone in front of his easel battling self-doubt now spoke louder than the fears echoing in his head. Painting had been his escape, the one medium through which he felt in control. It was time to reclaim that feeling in the light of judgment, not just self-affirmation. Jake wandered among the displays, taking in the stories unfurling on each canvas. One piece in particular caught his breath, a depiction of an endless horizon where the ranch met the sky, vibrant hues swirling with frustration and hope. A reminder of the conflict within him. He strived to traverse the dichotomy of his existence, a rancher by birth and an artist by choice. This piece showed not only his struggle but also his acceptance of both identities coexisting. Then, the low rumble of engines in the distance heralded the arrival of guests. One by one, familiar faces appeared through the barn doors: neighbors, friends, acquaintances. Their murmurs floated through the air like autumn leaves brushing against one another. Each face registered interest, a mirror reflecting his own apprehension. "Here goes nothing," Jake muttered under his breath, summoning courage. As a small crowd began to gather, he stood at the forefront, a man shaped by the land, yet striving to transcend it. Slowly, the knot of anxiety in his stomach loosened as he began to speak, sharing not only the narrative behind his art but also the stories embedded within the very fabric of his being. As Jake narrated his journey, he found liberation in speaking his truth. His hands gestured animatedly, weaving together the bond of ranch life and artistic pursuit in a way no one had ever heard before. The sensation of vulnerability was palpable, but so was the budding connection forming with every soul listening. They were not just spectators, they were participants in his metamorphosis, but amidst the warmth of their acceptance, a tension simmered within Jake. What if some responded with skepticism? On the edge of excitement stood the precarious cliff of potential rejection. Moments passed, and as he guided them from piece to piece, he cast hesitant glances towards the crowd. Would they share his awe, or would they question his audacity, the nerve to balance such different worlds? Then, a decisive moment came when one of his brothers stepped forward, arms crossed. The air seemed to thicken around Jake. What began as a hesitant nod evolved into a startling inquiry: "What made you think you could be more than just a rancher?" The question pierced through the soft atmosphere like a thunderclap, pulling back the veil on Jake's composed facade. There they stood, brother to brother, estranged by unspoken judgments and expectations. Jake felt a fire ignite within. This moment was too crucial to shy away from. Did he have the resolve to respond without hesitation? The air crackled with the weight of uncharted territory. His heart raced as he prepared to confront this challenge head-on. The room seemed to hold its breath. You could almost hear the paint drying as tension hung thick in the air. Jake had not only opened the door to his artistic self but now stood on the threshold of a confrontation that could redefine his existence entirely. Would he rise to meet it, or would the weight of those familial expectations drown him once more? In that charged moment, Jake could feel the eyes of the gathering press in on him, demanding answers as they rested on the precarious edge of expectation. His brother's voice echoed in his mind, a challenge woven with a lifetime of familial duty and rivalry. The urge to retreat was palpable, but eclipsed by an unexpected resolve. An unfamiliar but exhilarating strength surged through him. "I never thought I was just a rancher," Jake declared, the steadiness of his voice surprising even himself. "I've always been more. The land is a part of me, yes, but so is the paint, the canvas, the need to express what it means to live between worlds." His brother raised an eyebrow, skepticism etched sharp on his features. "So, does this mean you're done with ranching? You think you can just paint your way to a new life?" The question curled around Jake like a noose, constricting yet igniting a defense within him. He faced a moment of reckoning. Did he abandon his roots for art, or did he find a way to fuse both worlds? "No, it doesn't mean that. It means I can be both," he replied, the words formulating as he spoke. "Each brushstroke is my tribute to the land, the sweat poured into every rise and fall of the hoofbeats. I've spent years trying to choose between what I should be and who I truly am. But they don't have to be separate." Jake could see the gears turning in his brother's mind as confusion rippled across an otherwise stoic surface. For years, he felt overshadowed and underestimated, the black sheep of the family chasing dreams deemed impractical. Yet here was a chance to approach his brother on a level of honesty they rarely shared. Before the silence could smother him again, Jake turned back to the canvases. "Come look at this one," he enticed, motioning toward the vibrant horizon piece. "It's not just color and shape. Look closely. It's where I challenge my limitations." The crowd leaned in, some captivated, some unsure, the tension palpable. Jake felt buoyed by their attention, the criticisms temporarily eased as he delved deeper into his work. "This painting, like my life, is a blend. Here lies the distance I've crossed, the pain I've felt, and the wonder of possibilities. Each line tells a story as real as any brand on a cow." With his brother reluctantly following, Jake felt a shift in the atmosphere. The camaraderie of understanding began to displace doubt, like sunlight breaking through a stormy sky. If he could expose his vulnerabilities without steeping in the fear of rejection, maybe others could see the beauty of his dual identity as well. Suddenly, the intensity of questioning returned when another voice from the crowd cut through. "But aren't you scared? Scared of failing? Scared of being neither?" A woman stepped forward, her eyes reflecting the complexity of commitment and passion. "Every day," Jake admitted, standing taller against the weight of her inquiry. "The fear is a constant companion. But what scares me more is the thought of looking back one day and realizing I let fear dictate my life. I'm confronting that fear, because I refuse to let it hold me hostage." He paused, allowing the gravity of his words to settle. Each heartbeat echoed his truth, his determination solidified. The courage to stand before his audience, to defy his brother, and to unveil his hidden self was a moment of profound realization. Then came the periphery of doubt again as he caught his brother's expression shifting, uncertainty grappling for dominance over a resolve he didn't fully understand yet. Jake felt an unyielding urge to breach that divide, to shift the familial skepticism into acceptance. I'm still that rancher, and I still love this land. But now, more than ever, I'm willing to chase both the horizon and the paint. You'll see. With that declaration, Jake recognized he had taken a vital step toward his evolution. Yet, deep down, he knew challenges lay ahead. He wasn't just battling the expectations set by his family, he was facing a new journey, a struggle for acceptance in various facets of his life. As the murmurs of the crowd transformed into conversations, Jake noticed one person lingering, a familiar figure tucked in the shadows with a look in their eyes that fueled both anticipation and trepidation. It sparked a new wave of questions within him. Who else was grappling with identity? And what truths remained hidden that could turn the tide of this moment further? This new intrigue hung in the air, leaving both Jake and his audience eager for the next chapter of his unfolding narrative. The moments following Jake's impassioned declaration unfolded in a swirl of emotions. Conversations erupted within the crowd, some voices filled with intrigue, others tinged with disbelief. He stood rooted in place, attuned to the movements around him, but inwardly preoccupied with the figure lingering at the back, a woman with an air of familiarity, her presence a puzzle he was eager to solve. As the crowd drifted into animated discussions about art and ranching, Jake found himself inching closer to her. There was something about the way she observed him, as if she were unraveling an intricate design. Memories collided in his mind as they locked eyes. Sarah, his childhood friend, a fellow dreamer often relegated to the sidelines of their town's conversations. Once, they shared laughter beneath the wide-open skies, now she stood there, a living echo of his past. Jake, she called out softly as though she was uncertain whether to reclaim this faded connection. I didn't think I'd see you here. Not after everything. A wave of nostalgia swept over him. They had fought their way through life's complexities together, but time had pulled them apart, leaving only wisps of shared childhood dreams. Yeah, it's been a while, he managed, his voice steady despite the tumult brewing within. I was surprised to hear you painting, Sarah stated as a knowing smile appeared, yet Jake noted the hesitation in her words. The corner of her mouth twitched, revealing a moment of struggle within. I needed to express more than the land could offer, he replied, his determination solidifying as he spoke. It was a thin veneer, but it felt genuine enough, yet the layers of his past threatened to creep through, the fear of being dismissed, the dread of failing at both art and ranching. Are you sure you're ready for the change? She probed, tilting her head, her eyes betraying concern. You know our town, it expects something from you. Are you prepared to face that? The question hit him like a definitive punch. He had felt the weight of those expectations, the palpable suffocation of adhering to a set path laid out by his lineage. And here was Sarah, echoing similar fears he'd yet to confront fully. I'm trying to redefine what's expected of me. This is my journey now, my truth. It's a big risk, she countered, her voice imbued with a cautious admiration. The bridge between two worlds. A lot of people don't understand that. Jake watched her closely, a flicker of recognition igniting something deep within as he shifted the conversation. But what if there's beauty in the struggle? What if by chasing both realms, I can breathe life into something new and unexpected? Her gaze softened as she listened. I see it in your work, Jake. But tell me something, are you truly ready to blend them together? The ranch, your art and your history with the town. Her words tied the knot tighter within him, leading to a focal point, a nexus of internal conflict. The fear of failure loomed large, but so did the exhilarating possibility of success. Could he indeed merge these facets of himself to reflect the complexity of his identity? I'm determined to try, he said, surprising himself with the clarity of his commitment. I want to prove that it's possible for me to live authentically, without the shackles of others' expectations. She let out a breath, a subtle release of tension between them. I admire that, she said. But her hesitation cut through his newfound confidence, and he sensed her inner struggle. But what? He pressed, leaning closer, allowing the connection to burgeon. People won't accept change so easily. Sarah laid bare the truth, her eyes shadowed with doubt. You may have to confront some deeply rooted opposition. Are you ready for that? Jake swallowed, the weight of truth settling heavily on his shoulders. The crowd swirled around them, oblivious to the brewing storm of uncertainty beneath their shared moment. What would it mean to face that opposition? What if his own brother stood in the way? As the realization loomed heavily, he felt a pulse of courage awaken. Within him, a deepening conviction that the journey would require more than vivid paintings and romanticized dreams. The challenge to defend his identity, to craft a life that embraced both sides of himself, was only just beginning. Jake's breath caught in his throat. He wasn't just dealing with the expectations of his family or the town, he was entwined in a battle of proving his worth and authenticity to himself, and as he turned back to the crowd, the anticipation and doubt battled fiercely inside him. Perhaps it was time to step beyond creativity and into confrontation. The moment of truth arrived. The time had come to not only face his brother but also the vigilant eyes of the town that could shatter or support the world he aspired to build. Would he seize that opportunity, or would he fold under pressure? With that resolve simmering on the edge of his consciousness, Jake prepared to embrace the challenges ahead. Where would he draw the lines, and who would he become in this newfound dance between identities? The conversations around him blurred into a distant hum as Jake's focus sharpened on the crossroads ahead. No longer could he linger in the comforting shadows of nostalgia, it was time to leap into the light of uncertainty. He felt a strange blend of vulnerability and audacity inside him, pumping through his veins like adrenaline. Are you ready? Jake whispered to himself, prompting an internal refrain echoing louder now, of meeting not just others' expectations, but his own aspirations. He wanted to rise from the static planes of predictability, but how? What would this integration of art and ranch life look like? He stepped back, momentarily disengaging from Sarah's familiar presence, and scanned the crowd. Enthusiastic chatter painted smiles across many faces, yet he felt a palpable barrier growing in his heart. Each face held an opinion and expectation that clawed at him. They saw him innocent, unconsciously denying him the chance to evolve. What if I become a caricature of what they want? He thought, the possibility unsettling yet illuminating. As fear bubbled in his chest, he grasped it as a motivator, a tether that connected him to the truth beneath his ambitions. Sarah's doubts reverberated inside him. He wasn't just fighting the perceptions others had of him but the skeptics dwelling within himself. He recalled his brother, Ben, the golden child of the family, whose life revolved around the well-trodden path of ranching. Their contrasting dreams pressed weights upon the scales of their relationship. Jake's longing for creativity weighed heavily against Ben's commitment to tradition. Confrontation was inevitable. They had to wrestle with whispers like smoke curling through the air, art. This land needs hands, not brushes. But he refused to be a mere product of his surroundings. The landscape of his childhood was no longer enough, he would blend strokes of his past with the broad canvases of his future. I'll show them, he vowed silently, flipping doubt into determination. As he paced, an idea began to crystallize, an exhibit showcasing both his ranch life and his art. It was a bold move, yet it would defy the narrow definitions others imposed. How would I even start? He pondered, constellations forming in his mind. The palettes in his studio, the landscapes visible from his barn, each moment encapsulated stories waiting to be articulated through his art. He envisioned canvases delivered raw, infused with the character of the ranch, speaking not only of livestock and fields, but of the life he breathed into every stroke. Jake's heart raced at the thought, excitement tempered with an awareness of the inevitable dismissal he'd face. There would be critics. But wasn't he at the heart of art? The potential to provoke, to inspire debate and discomfort. This was about more than mere acceptance, it was about conviction. His resolve solidified as he turned back to Sarah, who was watching with an encouraging glimmer in her eyes. I'm going to start planning it, he said confidently, almost startling himself with the clarity of his words. A show that blends modern art with the rugged essence of ranch life. Really? She asked, her eyebrows arched in surprise mingled with hope. Yes. But, he added, a shadow flickering across his features, it means I'll need your help. Of course, she answered quickly, but her uncertainty hung in the air. But you have to prepare yourself for the pushback from the family and the community. They love the tradition. Then let us push. Jake retorted, a daring grin breaking through the doubt that lingered. Striking out in a new direction meant challenging the very heart of his upbringing. As they began exchanging ideas, Jake felt the pull of a new reality taking root within him. He was ready, or at least he would be if he took the first steps forward. While envisioning that fateful show, the harsh whispers of doubt began to fade, replaced by the hope of bright colors filling blank canvases, but lurking within that plan lay deeper fears. What if it all crumbled? What if facing Ben sent ripples of rage that tore their brotherhood apart? What would losing that connection mean for him as he attempted to forge this new path? Caught in the rising tide of aspiration and trepidation, Jake understood one truth: he was on the precipice of something that could redefine him completely. With each passing moment, the stakes grew. Would this blend of art and ranch life ignite acceptance or ignominy? As he pulled his focus back to the energy crackling around him, Jake realized he had only scratched the surface of his journey. Layers untold remained to be unveiled. The questions loomed, compelling him to confront the raw truth of who he was becoming. In that moment, a sudden clarification emerged: this odyssey demanded courage beyond mere self-acceptance. It was about embracing the very conflicts that shaped him. With resolve surging through him, Jake took a deep breath as the crowd around him pulsed with life, and he said resolutely, "I'm ready to make my stand." The heart of the challenge lay ahead, and as he turned back to Sarah, Jake knew that the pivotal confrontation with his brother would define everything. It was time to put it all on the line, but could he bear the cost of his ambition? Jake awoke to the soft glow of dawn spilling into his small studio, the light caressing the canvas draped against the rickety easel, teasing him with unfinished possibilities. The day ahead stretched before him, a blank slate that demanded action. The nerves churned in his stomach, not with dread but with an electric anticipation. This was no ordinary day, it marked the descent into a journey of self-discovery, one that would carve him out from the shadow of familial expectations into the radiance of his aspirations that he needed to reject the safety net woven from others' beliefs and desires. Jake stood at the window, gazing out at the sprawling landscapes that had been his childhood playground and present constraint. They were both familiar and stifling, and he knew he had to find a way to transform them. The vision of his upcoming exhibit flooded his mind, the ranch's rugged beauty infused with imaginative strokes of paint. It would convey a truth he had yet to articulate, one that twisted through the veins of tradition and creativity alike. All of this, however, hinged on confronting the most potent block in his path, Ben. The thought of approaching his brother filled him with a mix of apprehension and resolve. Their lives had often been on parallel tracks, but it was time for that to change. How could he explain the fiery passion that burned within him, the deep sense of yearning that propelled him towards art? Jake's mind played out scenarios, conversations that could either build bridges or ignite fires of animosity. He thought of the times he had sat alone, canvases blank before him, yearning to express himself without fear of judgment. The very act of creation felt revolutionary, as if unlocking a part of himself long suppressed. It was this realization that nudged him toward action, not because he wished to hurt Ben, but rather to find common ground in their divergent paths. Resolutely, he reached for his phone to call Sarah. Her insights were invaluable to him. "Can we meet up later? I need to talk through some ideas before I confront Ben," he asked, already feeling the anticipation rise. "Absolutely, just let me know when," she replied instantly. That supportive tone anchored him, fueling his courage. Drawing a deep breath, Jake turned back to his easel. He began sketching rapidly, each stroke agitation converted into decisive lines that seemed to pulse with his yearning for validation. He descended into the creative flow, losing track of time as each canvas paralleled his internal struggles and emergent strength. This art was a testament not just to his ranch life, but to the turbulent emotions he wrestled with, portraying everything from the vibrant sunsets to the quiet moments in the pasture where he felt misunderstood, throughout the afternoon. The act of creation was cathartic, revealing hidden depths within him that he hadn't yet acknowledged. An idea flickered into existence, a series of pieces that would represent different stages of his life intertwined with themes of nature, identity, and the tension between legacy and innovation. But as shadows lengthened across the yard, Jake became acutely aware of his looming task. Would he possess the tenacity to face Ben's likely skepticism? As he prepared to transition from the confines of his studio to the bustling world beyond, doubt seeped back in. "Jake," he whispered in a moment of introspection, "what if this leads to a break? What if he can't see your truth?" The prospect was daunting. The thought of confrontation twisted in his gut, yet, deep down, he recognized that not acting would be a betrayal of both himself and his brother. The clock seemed to speed up as he wrapped up his painting and tidied his studio. Each brushstroke had been a deliberate step toward clarity, a map of self-actualization slowly coming to fruition. With renewed determination fueling his heartbeat, he slipped on his boots and stepped outside. The sky blazed with colors reflecting his mood, static yet charged. He felt alive with purpose, but the impending discussion with Ben loomed like a thundercloud. Jake paused at the door, a sudden realization crashing over him. He was no longer stepping toward confrontation as a fearful man defined by others. He was moving toward it as a man ready to stand tall, ready to advocate for his vision. With one last breath infused with courage, he whispered into the stillness, "It's time." As his foot crossed the threshold, a new wave of anxiety gripped him. The sooner he faced this pivotal confrontation, the sooner he'd discover the truth about himself, the world, and his brother. Would this assertive step into uncertainty lead to understanding, or was it the spark that would ignite a deeper rift between them? Each moment held potential. The weight of his unseen future pressed upon him, and as he approached his brother's ranch, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that all he had been through had prepared him for this very moment. What lay ahead felt monumental, ready to reshape the very core of his identity. Jake Matthews arrived on his brother Ben's ranch with a heart pounding in rhythm with the soft hoofbeats of the horses grazing nearby. Each step took him closer to a confrontation long awaited yet dreaded. Today would not just be a conversation, it was the reckoning of identities and the merging of worlds he had feared but craved to share. As he approached the barn, memories of their childhood flooded back, the sense of camaraderie over long days spent under the sun, the unwavering commitment to the land forged between them. Yet now, Jake felt miles apart from that connection, cloaked in a desire for artistic expression that might stab at the very core of Ben's beliefs. He hesitated, taking a deep breath to prepare for the dialogue they needed to have. "Jake," Ben called, his brow furrowed as he noticed his brother's approach. The air hung heavy with unspoken expectations. What is going on? This was at the moment that could unravel or redefine everything. "Ben, I need to talk to you about something important," Jake said, firming up his resolve. His brother's skeptical expression only added to the knot in his stomach, but Jake was determined. This was his moment of clarity, the unveiling of who he had become. As they stood by the barn, Jake began, "I've been painting. Not just landscapes, but emotions. I'm using art to express the part of myself I've kept buried for too long." The words erupted from him, infused with urgency. He saw his brother's jaw tighten, confusion mingling with disappointment, as if he was a ghost watching someone else's life unfold. "I understand you've gotten attached to painting, but what you're saying, it's a distraction. This ranch has been our life. It's what we were born for," Ben replied, crossing his arms defensively. Jake's heart raced at the challenge. This was exactly why he had stood at the precipice of fear for too long. "It is our life, but that doesn't mean we can't evolve. What if I combine the ranch with my art? This can enhance our legacy, honor both our roots and aspirations. I see beauty in the land that I can express creatively," he declared, passion infusing his voice, and then there it was, the flicker of understanding that Jake had yearned for. Ben's hardened exterior gave way for just a moment as he processed the words. "Jake, I don't think it's that simple," he muttered, uncertainty etching deeper lines on his face. "It can be, if we let it," Jake insisted. "I want to have an art showcase right here on the ranch. I want to blend our lives together and bring art to the heart of the land. It can tell our story, our shared history, while charting a new course together. In that charged atmosphere, Jake noticed the shifts in Ben's expression, from skepticism to intrigue. The walls could come down, they could build something new. You really believe that this can work? Ben asked, tentatively allowing hope to color his words. Yes. It's my truth, something I've struggled to communicate for years, Jake replied, his voice a fervent whisper now. If you can see it through my eyes, I know we can find a way to not only keep our father's legacy alive but also create new pathways for what we can become. Ben stared at him long and hard, the weight of their shared legacy hanging heavy in the air. As silence engulfed them, Jake felt the pull of anticipation. Would his brother see the light or continue to cling to the fading shadows of tradition? Finally, Jake broke it. I'll show you the paintings. They're expressions of everything we are and everything we can be. Let us see, Ben replied, the corners of his mouth twitching as if yielding to curiosity. They moved back to Jake's barn, where the canvases awaited each a testament to his journey, illustrating the harmony he sought between the ranch and art. One by one, they viewed the collective narrative, each stroke accentuated Jake's connection to the land while hinting at his internal struggle. The vibrant landscapes, juxtaposed with poignant reflections of ranch life, painted a picture of duality he longed to share, with each canvas unveiled, Ben's stern reserve melted as he began to comprehend. A smile broke through slow and steady, but unmistakable, lighting up his eyes. I see it now. You've put everything into these. Maybe this could bring our community together in a way we never imagined, Ben finally admitted, his tone shifting from skepticism to cautious optimism. A rush of relief washed over Jake. This was the transformation he had envisioned not just for himself but for them both. Each step forward was sealing a pact, a new chapter for the Matthews men to embrace their choices boldly. In the weeks that followed, Jake proposed the showcase, working side by side with Ben. The ranch transformed into a gallery where cattle grazing and paintings mingled elegantly, connecting tradition with the artistic spirit. Neighbors flocked to see the amalgamation of worlds, laughter, art, and legacy intermingled, resonating with a fresh vibrancy. Jake not only conquered his internal battle but initiated a dialogue that reshaped their community and brought them closer than ever. He stood proudly at that first exhibit, assured and fulfilled, knowing he had proven himself as both rancher and artist. As the night unfolded beneath the Texas stars, Jake felt the solid support of the ranch, the canvas of his artist's heart on full display for all to appreciate. He had achieved not just acceptance but connection, proving that embracing his truth was the ultimate legacy he could share. Now more than ever, he understood the profound beauty in understanding and intertwining dual identities. In that moment, he had not just transformed his life, he had conquered the fears that once held him captive. Embrace your truth, the world is ready for it. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. You need to feed it. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters here. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share.